Did you know Venus is the only planet to spin clockwise? It travels around the sun once every 225 Earth days, but it rotates clockwise once every 243 days.
I did
I
not
have,
know that.
I have, that's why Google and the internet is so much fun. It's weird because like you get those fun little anecdotal things, but nobody does it mean anything? Not really. Not to us normies, but it is fun though.
Definitely. I like looking up random stuff too, or you'll scroll past some random stuff on TikTok and be like, "What is this?" And then you're like, "Oh, that's cool. I'm gonna use that the next time I wanna, you know, share something with somebody or give them a little fun fact."
It's fun. It's good for trivia night with your friends that you want to get out of the house very early because they've overstayed their dinner welcome.
Absolutely, I
Did you know
agree.
that Venus does this? Oh boy, we got to get out of here right now.
That's hilarious.
So what's good, everybody? Welcome back to the Playbook Podcast with Prescott Kelly. I am Prescott Kelly. Ooh, it's only 8 o'clock in the morning here. I haven't woke up my vocalizers yet. It is 8 o'clock in the morning. It is Wednesday, January 28th. I'm glad to have Keith, or I said Keith because I was going to ask you a question. I have Stewart Brooking of the Morning Brew with Stew podcast joining me. How are you doing today, bud?
Doing good. How are you, man?
I'm really good. And I messed up my off stage question was Brooking is not it's not a last name that I hear very often. So I thought this man has a podcast. Is he related to Keith Brooking, the former
I
linebacker?
I am not, but we used to joke about that all the time. Joked about it when I was in high school. Told my friends I was. Said I had his phone number, and it was just my uncle, so it wasn't really Keith Brooking. But yeah,
Was
uh,
Keith so Keith Brooking was your uncle though?
no, 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 no.
Oh,
We're
you
not
don't.
related.
I did the exact same thing, dude, because like my first name is James. So as growing up as a Bills fan, I told people that Jim Kelly was my uncle. I did that all the time.
Yeah, we're definitely not related. It is cool though. It's a name you don't see very often, but no, we're not related. Or if we are, it's probably so far down the line we don't even realize it.
It's one of those things where you kind of you look at one of those emails that says you might be you might be getting some compensation from something else, or you might be related to. Yeah, yeah, maybe I am related to Keith Brooking, but
It might be way down the line. Way down the line.
but so before we get into the actual episode, I want people to know where they can find you, a little bit about you, your story, and all the platforms where they can find you at. Because being in Indiana, I'm in Alaska. We're in two markets that, for most people, it seems like it's out of the ordinary. So, how'd you get started? What's the story behind it, and what brought you into this world?
Yeah, I got started because my wife bought me a microphone for Christmas in 2019, I believe. I my
The stories
friends
are
had
so
all kind of.
similar.
I had gone to a different college from some of my other friends. I'd gone to the same college as my wife, girlfriend at the time, wife now, and you know, I always talk sports. I used to do it. I always say I used to do it for free with my friends. So it was the career that I chose. I was a broadcasting major, got my degree in broadcasting, but I had all these takes and sports opinions at the time and nowhere to put them and nothing to do with them. So I always thought about starting a podcast. When I was younger, I was way more worried about what other people thought. So I didn't. I held off a little bit longer. But I knew if my wife bought me the microphone for Christmas, I could not use it, right? So I told her to buy me one. She did, and we've been going strong ever since.
It's so weird because you and I had similar paths but also different. So I kind of felt the exact same thing where I always wanted to have this platform to be able to do this endeavor, but I was too scared to take the leap. And it wasn't until a buddy of mine who worked at a radio station and they only played music goes, we're looking to kind of change things up, speed things up. We're thinking about a sports thing. So I had a radio show on, like, I say live air in Alaska, like it means something. But I got a taste of that. COVID happened. And I thought, well, why not? And then my wife, same thing, bought me my initial mic setup, and then I went and got a roadcaster. I put so much in this where, if it turns into something, it turns into something. And I really have enjoyed the journey. I've had a lot of fails along the way. I'm not sure how your journey has gone, but I've made so many mistakes. And has that kind of been the same thing for you, or is it just this is what it is, and I'm good with the space that I'm in? Because for me, like, I overthink everything, and to see where I was on the original show and failing so many times, I go, man, why do I keep doing this sometimes?
Yeah, I think for me, when I got into it, and I talked about this in my year end review and preview for 2026, I talked about it a little bit, which was like when this started, I wanted to be the next Colin Cowherd. Right going into college, I kind of discovered Colin Cowherd and fell in love with that style of sports talk, right? But what you start to learn very quickly is you have to have a vast knowledge of every sport. I really don't. I have enough that I can have a conversation with you about basketball. I could have a conversation with you about baseball, but we start getting into the weeds, and that's where I find out you get burned, right? I'm not that guy. That's not me. But so it became this thing for me where, man, football's out of season. The season's over. And now I'm going 2 or 3 weeks about publishing an episode, and I'm going 2 or 3 weeks about doing this. And so then I discovered this podcast called Say the Damn Score podcast. Going to give a shout out here, but uh, the host of it, Logan Anderson, is a play-by-play guy, which is what I wanted to do and what I went to college to do was play-by-play, right? And I said, kind of like I'm doing now. We'll get to that part what I'm doing now, but part of me was like, you know what? I'm kind of selfish here. Like I want to pick the brain of guys like Ian Eagle, guys like Brandon Godden, the voice of Madden, those types of things. So why don't I have this platform? Why don't I just bring them on here? I can ask them questions that I would ask them over the phone, but then that works as a podcast as well. So started interviewing broadcasters, all those types of things, and then things happened, things changed. My wife started coaching basketball. I watched her coach, and I started to get the bug. I asked the football coach if I could help. Started coaching football, and the same thing kind of helped. Same thing kind of happened there, right? Where, man, I can't really afford to go to clinics. Can't really afford to travel to these different states to do clinics. Well, why don't I bring the clinics to me? So I started interviewing these coaches, all these types of things. And again, it was the same thing. 2024 came along. We moved. And I think the big thing for me was 2024. We moved our house, our first house, and it started to put some strain. Go too deep, but it put some strain on the relationship there with my wife and I because I got to record, I got to record, I got to record. Well, there's things that we got to do around the house that need to be done. I just wasn't there to do it, and so 2025 came, and I kind of shifted out of that opinionated stuff. I still do it, right? Occasionally, I do every summer. I typically do a big quarterback countdown ranking. That usually is opinions. I rank the quarterbacks in the NFL. Draft time, I do draft rankings. So like that's still opinionated stuff. But we get to 2025, and I made the New Year's resolution in 2025 for the podcast that I was going to put out a podcast every single week. But I
And
said,
you
how am I
did
going
it.
to do
'Cause
that?
I loved your recap because that's what I look to do. My schedule doesn't allow it though, but you stayed consistent through all of it, and I appreciate you for that.
Yeah, and I figured out a trick. It's something I kind of always knew, but like had never really, I guess, used, which is, in the broadcasting world, we call it evergreen content. But a guy whose podcast I listen to, Chris Van Vliet, he interviews a bunch of wrestlers and, wrestling podcasts and those types of things. It really got me because he would air interviews in June from things he did in WrestleMania weekend, and WrestleMania weekends in April. I started
Right.
thinking, well, why can't I do that? So what I did was I said, my goal is to put one out every year. We have a we have a cruise coming up in May, so I need to record enough episodes to get us through that cruise. And then I said, in July, I'm going to record really heavy because I don't want to have to record during football season. I'm already going to be busy with coaching and all that stuff. So July, I recorded enough episodes. Just did one, one extra every week, and that put me. I didn't have to record another episode till mid October, and so that's how I was able to do it. And that's still the thing I'm doing now. I've got episodes recorded now that's going to get me through the middle of March. So I technically wouldn't have to record anything else. I'm going to next week because we have the Super Bowl coming up next week, so I'd like to record that one live, do some reactions, those types of things, drop that week. But
Sure.
that's kind of the trick and how I was able to do it and put out 55 episodes when I only wanted to put out 52, and brought in 27, 28 new guests, which was not the intent when I did this, but it was just benefit. It was the benefit of having to put one out every single week.
Yeah, no, that's a smart way of doing it, and I know that for me, I like having guests on. It's usually people that I've met through the social media landscape where they live in different parts of the country and they're sports fans. Where I get to test the tempo of Chicago and Cleveland and Philly and Texas, and that's fun and all. But I try to do it in the moment, and that's what I struggle with is that the 2 days that I have are because I work like 11, 13-hour days. So when I'm here, I try to be present in the moment. And what's difficult is being able to really put the effort into this as much as I want to. Because I'm with you. I want this to succeed, but I'm at the point now where, man, it is what it is. And if it grows, it grows. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I just enjoy doing what I do in this space more than anything else. And like you said, you had 28, 27 new guests last year, which is incredible. I enjoy hearing the stories of other people more than hearing my own stories in my head.
Yeah,
I'd rather talk
absolutely.
to somebody else.
Absolutely, and like I said, it was not the intent. I did not set out to say like, "Hey, let's get 28 new guests." But when you're trying to put out 52 episodes a year, one every week, that's kind of the point. And like that's like with me this year. I'm going to record heavily in April and heavily in May because we have a baby coming in June. I really am not going to record in June, and I'm probably not going to record through most of July. So I'm going to need something to get me through all of June and part way through July.
One, congratulations. Two, you're a smart man for doing that because no one's getting any sleep, and that baby is going to be priority number one.
Right. So and that was the thing was this year I and I constantly think about the schedule. I look at the schedule every day, try to lay it out, see how I want to do it. But I'm constantly thinking of content. What are some things I can do there? And then this year, one thing I've done is I've developed a vault, as I call it, which is just evergreen content. And my intention is to never use the vault, but it's just episodes I've recorded that are going to sit there. I I don't intend on using it, but if I ever have to, if something comes up and I don't have time to record an episode for whatever week, I can drop one of those Vault episodes. So that's kind of where I've gotten to. The podcast has changed from that kid in 2019 who wanted to be the next Colin Cowherd. Now I'm trying to just have fun conversations with football coaches, with guys across the football world, and trying to help other football coaches along the way, trying to help myself to where when someday when I become a head coach, I've developed all these conversations and connections.
That was one of the questions I did have for you, though, too, is that I've listened to you for a bit now, and you do have a lot of coaches on. And it's weird to me because I know that we messaged back and forth through Messenger. And it's bro, one, how do you have the connections to all these coaches? And two, is Brandon Gotten the most famous person you've ever interviewed? Because that I literally went, and I hate using the word literally because so many people use it all the time. But when I heard that episode, I go, this man's really talking to the voice of Madden. How did you swing that?
Uh, it's either Godden or Iron Eagle. Iron Eagle's up there. Iron Eagle's been a repeat guest on the
Did I miss the
podcast.
Iron Eagle one?
I haven't done it since last March. So
Okay, I must have
last
missed that
March,
one.
he comes on just about every March, but it's been him or Iron Eagle. How I got into Brandon Godden, um, to be honest with you, I'm not sure. I think there's these websites out
No,
there.
you don't get to do that. You don't get to look like you had that little coy smile. You're like, I don't really know how that happened. Brandon Godden just doesn't fall in your lap as a podcast guest. Don't
So
do that.
there's these there's this website, and I can send it to you later. It's leaving my head right now, but there's this website where you can type in names of people that maybe you want to have on the podcast, and if they have a LinkedIn, it will pop up on their email, and then you can click and copy their email. I think I did that with Brandon. I think that's how that worked out. Um, and I just basically connected the Hoosier connection with us being from Indiana, me being a huge, huge Butler basketball fan, right? And him being the former radio voice of the Butler Bulldogs. And then him on top of that being from Evansville. And I, at the time, was going to the University of Southern Indiana, which was in Evansville. All these things that kind of, I put all that in the email, and it was like, hey, by the way, I also happen to have this podcast. Would you mind being a guest? And he has. Um, we've connected over time. We've I think the one thing, and I'm not trying to sound, I guess the way I'm gonna try to say this as humbly as I can, but the one thing I guess that he likes, and he's told me multiple times, the reason he likes coming on the podcast is that I actually, like, a lot of times I put a lot of homework time, a lot of effort into looking up questions and things, whether it's previous interviews he's done or things like that, and ask him about those things that keeps the conversation new, even though he's come on several times. Him or Ian Eagle for sure. But with the football coaches, I, I'm a, I'm always trying to learn, and I listen to other football coaching podcasts, right? And so I'll see who their guests are, and then if I liked their conversation, I'm gonna slide into those DMs, or I'm gonna send them an email and see if they want to come onto the podcast. And 9 times out of 10, they're gonna say yes. 9 times out of 10, they're willing to talk. That's something that shocked me when I got into this, because when I grew up and I was playing football, coaches didn't really talk about scheme that much, except for their team, right? Like, it was, hey, you can't tell anybody about what we're doing. It's kind of top secret, right? Even though they can see it on film.
But now everybody knows everything because technology has advanced to the
Yeah.
degree that it is
So you
now.
start to realize how willing these coaches are to talk about their scheme, and really how willing coaches are to talk about themselves. And, one thing led to another. And I've just started getting these coaches on. One thing leads to, like, you get a legendary coach like Hal Mummy on. Hey, one of the guests I had on before knew Hal personally, sent me his number, and one thing led to another, and got him on the podcast. So it's those things, it's
That's
connections.
crazy,
It's
dude.
my big thing is, what I tell people is, reach out. That's it. Like, you're gonna get a lot more no's than you are yeses, but you can't get guys like Brandon Gott, and you can't get guys like Ian Eagle without asking. And if you ask, maybe they say no, but my thing is, if Ian Eagle said no, I didn't have him on before. So, like, if he said no, it's not like it's gonna be that big of a deal. But he happened to say yes, and he said yes every year since, and I've had him on. So this year,
I love Iron Eagle.
if he
He's great.
agrees to come
He's
back on
great.
this year, it'll be 4 years.
That'd be cool. I love Iron Eagle. He's awesome.
Yeah, he
He's
is.
it's just there are some people that, and I want to get into like our actual talking points in a moment, but between him and so the family trajectory of broadcasting, I want to get your opinion on real quick before we move on. Is Joe Buck, do you think good at what he does, awful, or got it because of his daddy? I honestly think that he's one of the most hated people in sports media, and I don't really understand it.
Yeah, we're from the same mindset there. Listen, I did he get it from his dad? Yeah. I mean, he'll tell you that. He told you that in his book. I listened to his book. He'll tell you that in his book, right? But I think what
That's the
people don't
door
understand.
opener, but you got to walk through it though.
Right. I think what people don't understand is, people can get you jobs all day long, but you have to be able to execute at a high level. He's one of the goats, in my opinion. I think he is. In my opinion, he's one of the goats. I think he's right up there with the Nances of the world. I think he's up there with the Al Michaels of the world. He's one of those guys that, when it's all said and done, you look back 20 years, we're going to say, why was he hated so much? He's one of the goats, and he's going to go down as one of the greatest of all time, in my opinion. And he is, and he gets a lot of hate, but I think it's because people don't understand the business, right? People say, oh, he's dry, or he's this or that. He's not a team broadcaster. Even team broadcasters, like, some guys will tell you,
Thank
we
you.
try not to yell or scream because, we're trying to get that ESPN job. When you're doing neutral broadcast, you can't be yelling and screaming when there's a big shot or those types of things. Like, yeah, Gus does it. Gus Johnson did, but for anybody that followed Gus, right? Uh, this past year at the Indiana game, he got ripped for how he called the Indiana Penn State game. And it's because they felt like he overdid it and he went too crazy, right? And I love Gus Johnson. I'm a big Gus Johnson guy. That's a white whale on my podcast, right? That's my Moby Dick is uh is Gus Johnson, getting him on the podcast. But you think about it, and it's just like Joe calls it right down the middle. When the moments are big, he gets big, and when the moments aren't, he's also cool. And he does a lot of the little things that people don't that aren't in the business don't realize that make a broadcast so much better.
For sure. And like there has to be some animation towards what you're doing, right? Like you have to sell what's going on because some people aren't watching it live. They might listen to it later on. So you have to, regardless of whatever your viewing or hearing experience is, it needs to feel organic and it needs to feel like you're there regardless. And I understand the homerism of some players or in this regard, some broadcasters when it comes to either players or teams, and that can be off-putting to people because the whole thing is if you're a journalist and you are a broadcaster, you're not supposed to be biased in your opinion. You're supposed to keep things like you said, like that's the whole reason why people keep things so judiciously and they keep their emotions under wrap until a big play happens. But sometimes it just does, and it is what it is. So Nigel is in the chat, and he's a coach up here in Alaska as well. He coaches high school football, and he was kind of talking about I'm weird. I keep games on mute as far as the broadcasters. I don't put them on mute all the time, but I don't go to game. We really do need to get to our talking points, but real quick, are you somebody who gravitates towards a game because who is commenting? Because I know that some people say I'll only watch Tony Romo games or I won't watch them at all. Same thing with Tom Brady. Same thing with Jim Nance or whatever. Do you gravitate towards the broadcaster or do you gravitate more towards the game itself and you don't care about who's calling it? Because there are certain commentators I don't like, and ones I don't like I will mute, but I don't go to certain games just to hear the opinion of a certain broadcaster.
No, I'm more into the games and the big time games, right? There are some guys who I can't stand, who I don't like listening to, right? But
Ooh, do that.
at
No, give
the
me the hot take. Who do you not like? No, we're gonna do this right now. I'm gonna put you on the spot. Who do you not like?
off the top of my head, I can't really think of, because it's like because around here with the Colts, you usually get like the CBS 2 or 3 teams, right? So I don't know the CBS 3rd team or 4th team on the call all that level. But there are some guys that always get stuck on the Colts games that aren't the greatest and who I think, you know, I don't like listening to. But listen, it's the Colts game. I'm not going to mute it. I'm not going to turn it off. So, I'm
That's
just going to
fair.
listen to it. I do I do that anyways, right? But I think for me, the big thing is one thing I can't stand is like, well, when broadcasters, excuse me, point out the obvious. That's one thing that drives me nuts. Is you're listening to a game and they're like, they'll say something like, "Oh, Colts are down by 14. They really need to score here." It's like, yeah, no kidding. Like we get that. I can see that.
Oh,
No,
weird.
no kidding.
Do we not have a 15-point play?
So, it's things like that where I'm like, I understand we need to score here. Like we know it. Those things drive me nuts. And maybe it's because my team's losing. Maybe if they said it, maybe if they were like, "Oh, the Colts are up by 14, the Titans need to score," I
They
wouldn't
really
care.
need to
But
stop.
it's just when they point out the obvious sometimes where I'm like, we get it. Like I've been watching the game. I can see what's happening, or we've been following along or whatever. So, but no, it won't bring me to a game. It also won't
It won't
like
deter you from not watching it too.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I don't care. Like if I may not like who calls a game, but it is what it is.
for sure. Yeah. And to wrap up, we need to get to Indianapolis football and then the coaching carousel. Nigel says Dennis Miller was what started the mute button for me. I don't know if I don't know if I can completely disagree with that. I didn't think he was very good in the booth. I understand the reasons why. That's neither here nor there. Moving on to Indianapolis football. So going into the season, what was your expectation? The whole Daniel Jones experience, because I feel like we got the entire Daniel Jones experience, good, bad, or indifferent. And then going into next year, what are your thoughts of before the season expectations, what's happened, and just the muddled kind of off season, if you will?
Yeah, it's a lot. There's a lot there. Heading into the off season, if everybody would have listened to me in the off season, which I did do a preseason show, I I would have said, and I believe I did say that I thought the Colts were going to be in the running for one of the quarterbacks in this draft class. I thought because and the reason for that is I'm not an Anthony Richardson guy. I have been a guy who has said I don't think he's an NFL quarterback from the moment he came out, doing the draft work, stuff like that. I just didn't
So
see
knowing
it
that
with
you had
him.
Daniel Jones as well, did you think that floor was really low?
Here's what I didn't think. I'll go back to this. I went back to Anthony Richardson's rookie year. Gardner Minshew outperformed him in camp. Gardner Minshew played better than he did in the preseason. Gardner Minshew, in every aspect of the word, should have been the starter heading into that 2023 season when Anthony Richardson was a rookie, and they handed the job to Anthony Richardson because he was their fourth overall pick and they wanted him to win. I thought for sure Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen's job was tied to Anthony Richardson this year. And I thought for sure, no matter how much Daniel Jones outplayed him in the preseason, outplayed him in camp. They were going to hand the job to Anthony Richardson because they wanted him to succeed. So that's where my thought process was. And that's why I thought this isn't going to go well. They're going 4 games. They're going to do this. They're going to do that, right? They they give Daniel Jones the job. I thought Daniel Jones was a perfect fit for Shane Steichen. I thought I liked that. But at the same time, I was like, it's Daniel Jones. You don't know what you're going to get out of Daniel Jones. He came in.
I appreciate you saying that because I am so tired of people overvaluing early season success with new coaching staffs and new regime. Like, because I almost look at it as like you're a rookie quarterback. There's no tape on you in this offense. So when Daniel
Oh, don't
Jones is
get me
going
wrong.
to,
I thought we were going to the Super Bowl after that 8-2 start, to be honest with you.
so you were, but I mean, when you start off 8-2, there is a reason to feel that way. So I do understand that, but I mean, when I mean like the infant stages of the progression where it's like it's 4-2 or 4-1, whatever. Like
Yeah.
Daniel Jones, that guy. I'm like, we have enough tape on this guy where we should probably pump the brakes. And he did play well enough, but then he kind of went to pumpkin mode. And Sam Darnold hasn't done it yet, but that's the thing for me is I need Sam Darnold to go into pumpkin mode so that I can finally feel validated in everything I've said for basically his career. Because if he wins the Super Bowl and he balls out, I look like the biggest idiot on planet Earth, and I don't want that.
Now, I'm a Sam guy. I had him as my number one quarterback in my first ever quarterback rankings when he came out in the draft. So, I'm always
At a
rooting for
USC,
Sam.
you
But
had him as the number one prospect.
yes, when he was coming out, it was him. We're not going to run through the list. It's a pretty bad list.
It's
Lamar or Josh Allen did not make the top 5, so we're not going to talk about it.
Hey, you don't have to worry about that because everybody thought that Josh Allen was cheeks for the first 2 years of his career. So you're
Yeah,
not alone. Don't feel bad about that one.
but with the Daniel Jones thing, I didn't start to buy in until we were 6-1, 7-1, and I think part of it is I was scarred as a fan. That 2022 year, 2021 year with Carson Wentz, almost ruined it for me. I say this a little dramatically, but I almost stopped being a fan of football because I was so heartbroken at how that season ended,
You don't
losing
want
to
to
the
see
2
my
and
Bills DMs. You don't
losing
want
to
to
the
see the
2 and
Bills. They
14
are awful.
Jaguars. Yeah, losing to the 2 and 14 Jaguars. It was bad. And so I like to call myself a realist. I guess some people would say a pessimist, but I look at it and I just try to be real about the Colts. And then we started going 7-1, we went 8-2, and I was like, all right, we're gonna win the Super Bowl. Then Daniel Jones gets hurt. He starts playing bad because he had that he had like a fracture in his foot. And then 2 games later, he tears the other knee, and then the rest is history, right? We go and get a 44-year-old off the couch, and we just, the season
Bro,
ends how the season ends.
talk about the weirdest dynamic in and this also feels hyperbolic, but it's got to be weird where at the beginning of the season you're like, oh, Daniel Jones is my quarterback, to oh, Daniel Jones is my quarterback, to going, oh, Daniel Jones is my quarterback in like a 2.5 month span. And like you said, we went from the expectations being low to, oh my God, we might win the Super Bowl, to going, no, we're this, all right, this is just what happens to our franchise, apparently. Besides the Peyton Manning years, and that's a whole nother conversation for another time. But speaking of the old man off the couch, do you think that Philip Rivers ever had a chance of being the Buffalo Bills head coach?
I don't know. I think he's done a really good job. I think what really got people in, I think what people, I think what got these GMs and some of these, owners are they don't see the guys audibling at the line like they do, like they used to do, right? Like what Peyton used to do. It'd take Peyton 45 seconds to snap the ball because he's up there calling out the mic, doing everything else, probably ordering his pizza, everything else, right? And same with same with
Every
Philip Rivers.
Only Jeff Saturday gets pizza. The rest of the line, nobody else, because you guys,
Yeah,
he's the one helping us and nobody else.
right. And so Philip Rivers was doing that, and I think a lot of the little bit of success that Philip had was he didn't have the physical talent anymore. He didn't have the arm strength anymore, but he was able to get the Colts out of a bad play into a good one, and he knew how to pick apart the defense. And I think that's something that is beneficial. I think at some point he's going to be a head football coach in the NFL. I just do. All the reports are telling you that there's people who want him to be it. I think all the reports are telling you that someday he will. That day's just not right now. I don't think he ever had a chance because I don't think he ever wanted it. He withdrew himself because I don't think he's ready for that.
Do you think there's a chance that, so sports is such a weird dynamic when it comes to the managerial positions like the head coaches and things like that, because not every great player is great at the front office stuff, right? And we saw with Michael Jordan, it was something where you are considered to be the best, if not, what, do your hierarchy however you want to, but you're not good at recruiting players, not great at the management side of it, because why can't you why can't you just do what I do? And I feel like some people get lost in the sauce on that. And not to say that with Philip Rivers, but I feel like there's a lot of previous players that get these jobs that don't necessarily deserve them because they are living off the name of yesteryear and they're getting their opportunities based on just their name recognition. Um, but Philip to me is somebody, because Jeff Saturday, he caught so much heat for being the head coach for like what, a 2 or 3 week span with no head coaching experience. But there's the familiarity, right? Like he played for the organization forever. Like there's a commonality between the player and their personality and things like that. But I'm going off of this tangent to be in the moment of, I'm kind of with you where Philip feels like he would be good at some point, but I do feel like there's going to be a little bit of like the skip the line mentality with a lot of other people if that's the way it goes. Now, if he goes to a place that has a quarterback in place and they want the offensive minded head coach, basically, I feel like that narrative and that dynamic, it drives towards it's a good hire. If it's somebody else, it's he skipped the line, because the outcome to me matters in what where people go in those coaching spaces does matter based on what your expertise is. And most of me is going to change the narrative just based on what the outcome is. So if Philip Rivers does get a head coaching job, because he's only coached high school, right? Like that's the knock on him. He's only done high school. He's been out for a bit. They ripped him off the couch to play for the Colts. So could he be great at football? Or he's obviously great at football. Could he be great as a head coach? Yeah, there's a potential for it, but I also feel like depending on where he goes and how the situation lands, the scrutiny is going to be higher in some situations more than others.
Yeah, and I think people are going to have comments on it, right? People are going to have issues with it, and rightfully so. But I think what people don't understand is with guys like that, right? If you skip the line, not only is it like oh, that's not fair. Look at all these guys who deserve this job, blah 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 blah. Like you're right, but I think what those people don't understand is that pressure is also higher than it's ever been. Like that pressure is higher on Philip Rivers than it is any of the other guys that he skipped in line of because he skipped the line. And
That is true.
you're saying we chose this guy over more qualified guys. So now the pressure on you to win is higher than it would for those who were more qualified. So you know, at the end of the day, I think he will be. I think I wouldn't be surprised though if he becomes if he takes the Josh McCown route where he becomes a quarterback coach or an offensive coordinator at some point and then works
Kind
his
of
way
stair
up
steps his way up.
into a head coaching job. I say that because I think once his son leaves high school, I think he'll be ready to move on to bigger things.
So Luke McCown is the LeBron James of football. No, I'm
Maybe,
asking.
maybe.
Life, taxes, or death, taxes, and a McCown being in the NFL. Those things are certain.
Right. He's the offensive coordinator where I think New Orleans right now or something like that.
I believe so.
But yeah, I mean, so I think he'll take that route. Maybe he's a quarterback coach, something, and but he skips the line, he skips the line. I wouldn't be surprised if Teddy Bridgewater skips the line. Teddy Bridgewater was a high school head coach too, had a lot of success. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets an OC job, especially in a place like Detroit, where he's familiar with, or Minnesota, or those places where he's played before. I could see that happening.
I could also see it too because you don't have to worry about sanctions about you trying to help kids.
Yeah. Right, right.
There's that. I know that you got to get out of here soon, and we filibustered for a very long time, and just kind of we were it was a feel out process because we've never really legitimately talked to each other, and we were going through the live stories. I know that you have to get out of here in a few minutes. Um, so what would you say, real quick, was your most surprising NFL firing? And so NFL firing that you didn't see happening, NFL head coach that kept his job, and then most surprising NFL head coach hiring after all the fact.
I don't know if there's a necessarily shocking firing. The one that the two that just don't make sense to me, right, is Harbaugh and Tomlin. And but both of those you kind of heard, like I kind of heard Adam Schefter talk about it weeks
I
in
don't think
advance. But
Tomlin got
then
fired though.
no, he resigned, but it was one of those things where I think it's unspoken where it was I think we all kind of knew because you had heard guys like Ian Rappaport and or not John Harbaugh, but Adam Schefter kind of talk about, he may be fired. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was one of those things where he did resign or step away just so he wouldn't be fired. But what I say all that with John Harbaugh to say like the John Harbaugh thing, even though I knew because Schefter had talked about it weeks in advance that it was coming, was something that shocked me because I think what people don't understand is people think all these teams and coaches think that or organizations think that good head coaches just grow on trees and they're hard to find. And you're going through more head coaches now than we've ever seen because everybody's impatient. Harbaugh won you a Super Bowl. 2 years ago, he was in the AFC title game. His quarterback got hurt this year, and he still took you to the playoffs. Like,
So
or
does
still
so
got you a
does
game away from the playoffs. So I say all that to say,
so,
like,
does the firing of the Bills with McDermott make you that surprised then,
yeah, because what are
based on
you doing?
the same criteria?
Yeah, because like, what are you gonna do? They hired Joe Brady. Joe Brady's never shown you anything as a head coach. You don't know what he is. Maybe it's a great hire, but
It's gonna
he's
be
never
bad for the
shown you
audio
that
podcast, but my eye roll went way back into 1988.
because maybe he's a great head coach, and maybe 2 years from now we're looking back at this and I look like a clown, right? But he's never shown you anything to prove that he's been a successful head football coach. McDermott has. You fired a guy because last year you were at the AFC title game and you didn't get in. You've been in the AFC title game, what, 3 out of the last 4 years or something like that? You've been close. However,
They've been to two championship games. They've been to the divisional round basically
right.
every year. I don't think they have any wild card exits under McDermott, but they've been to the AFC championship game, I believe, twice.
and in that you've played what many people consider the greatest quarterback of all time, or a guy who will be, in Patrick Mahomes, right? So let's just let's pump the brakes on firing coaches, because I'll tell you this, you know who hasn't seen the playoffs since 2020? The Colts. You know who kept the same coach since, or who's
And
we I
Philip
guess we do
Rivers
have a
was a quarterback
different coach,
against
but
my Bills.
the point being, we haven't been to the playoffs since 2020, and yet nothing's changed for us. But it's mind-boggling to me, because good coaches, they don't grow on trees. You can't just go pick a new one out. I would hold on to those guys for as long as possible, because they've got things cooking there. But hey, I think McDermott's going to land on his feet. I think he's going to do great things wherever he goes, and I
Oh,
think they're going to be successful.
I hope that he lands the best job ever. And so I'm from the South, and one of the things that we like to say is I hope that you get the day that you deserve.
Right.
And I hope that Sean McDermott gets the team that he deserves, because that man
And
turned around that franchise. And I'm with you. I don't feel like he should have been fired. If anybody, it's I didn't say this last week on the podcast, but I'm going to say it now. The Buffalo Bills are slowly turning into the Dallas Cowboys, and Terry Pagula is slowly turning into Jerry Jones, where he wants the yes man. And we don't have a problem getting rid of the head coach that won us or got actually made us relevant again. And let's just pay the yes men. And that feels like what he's doing with Brandon Bean. And he promoted two guys who did not deserve it at all.
right, and let's take a look at the Titans, for instance. I hate the Titans, so anytime that they fail, it makes me
You
happy,
shouldn't hit
right?
the Titans. Don't pick on the Titans. They're a
Well,
lowly franchise.
most of it's the
Hate on
Titans
Houston. Hate
fans.
on Houston or Jacksonville. The Titans. Don't
Most
pick
of the
on the
time, it's the
Titans.
Titans fans. They haven't won anything, and then they talk a bunch of crap like like they've won Super Bowls or whatever, and they haven't. But the point being, you had a guy in Mike Vrabel, and you fired him because your quarterback had got hurt and didn't have the greatest season. But besides that, the year before or 2 years before, you were in the AFC title game, all this stuff, and then you
He
go and
took
you
a
look.
wide receiver and turned him into a quarterback who like you just said, he took a wide receiver in Tannehill to make him I know he was a quarterback in the NFL beforehand with Miami, but it's a wide receiver converted quarterback, and you took that team to an AFC title game, and then you
And,
canned him.
yeah, and now look at him; he's playing in the Super Bowl. So that's a prime example of great coaches don't grow on trees. They thought Callahan was going to be the guy. Callahan got fired halfway through this season, and it's just like, here you are again trying to hire a retread in Robert Saleh, who failed in New York. So he hasn't given you anything that said, "Hey, I'm a great head coach." You failed in New York,
Do
so
you
we'll
think he's a
find
bad head coach though, or do you think that was more of because you could
listen,
almost do word association and do a cross pollination of Robert Saleh and Sam Darnold at this point in time? Like
listen. I
what?
I don't think he's a bad head coach, but and listen, I love Robert Saleh. I think he's a great. I'm sure he's a great dude, right? But he coaches in Nashville, and I don't want him to have success. I'm sorry, I don't, because I don't want the Titans to be successful. I
You know,
could care less.
I appreciate your transparency on that. You're like, you know what? I just don't want. I don't like that man because he's in my division.
No,
He can go
I
kick
like the
rocks.
guy. Like, I love Cam Ward, but I want him to lose every single year,
No,
because oh,
and that's fair because like, sometimes when you see head coaches get re-upped or quarterbacks get extensions that are going to kind of handcuff their organizations, and you know that neither one of them are good, you're like, I'm glad that you're still around, you know. But like
yeah,
it's
I
like,
wish they would have kept Will Levis. I would have loved to beat up on
oh
Will
my,
Levis for another like decade and a half. But
yeah,
listen, I could
mayonnaise. A
go on a
lot of
rant
stuff is
for
going on.
years about the Titans. I'll give you one quick story, and then we can move on. I
Yeah,
told
for
my
sure.
wife I wanted to go to a Titans game this year, because this was the final year, I believe, of the old Nissan Stadium, the stadium that they currently play in. And I didn't want to have to admit that they may have a better stadium than Lucas Oil. So I went purposely to their falling
Oh,
apart, chipped up, uh, no good piece of crap stadium that they had this year. So yeah.
Kicked it off your bucket list real early.
Yeah, yeah, I did.
Bill Belichick not getting first ballot Hall of Fame. As a Bills fan, I don't know if I've been more irate about because to me the Hall of Fame doesn't matter. The Pro Bowl and the Hall of Fame to me, well, the Hall of Fame matters to me. The Pro Bowl doesn't at all. So people getting worked about Shador is kind of weird, but I kind of get it, and there's an easy fix, but whatever. But Bill Belichick not being a first ballot Hall of Famer, did you agree with it, or did you find it just outlandishly cartoonish on the NFL's part? Because I don't understand that move at all.
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing. It doesn't make sense. Listen, I get the whole Spygate thing. I think Deflategate, and listen, it happened. The Colts were the team that reported the whole Deflategate thing. I think Deflategate was blown out of proportion.
Deflategate
Every
might be the most obnoxious thing that people talk about, and it's
yeah,
a football that nobody detected at all until nobody knew about it until after the results, and that's
right.
that's thing that bothers me.
And here's the thing too. Every quarterback in the league did it at that point. And we can say what we want about it, whatever. Every quarterback was doing it. Aaron Rodgers told you he was doing it on, late night with like Jimmy Fallon or whatever. He told you he was doing it. Like, it doesn't matter to me. But all of that, I think the clown show that Bill Belichick has kind of become lately at UNC with the young girlfriend. I know that they say like none of that matters, right? It's strictly what happens on the field, but I think that had something to do with it as well. I just think there's a lot that goes into there. Um, into that shouldn't have gone into it. The guy's won 8 Super Bowls, 6 as a head coach. He is unbelievable. He's the greatest coach of all time. Should have been hired to be a head football coach again. Shouldn't have had to go to UNC. That tells you what kind of shame that is. He's a Hall of Fame coach, in my opinion, and he should be in there. He should have been a first ballot. I think that's one of those where it's like, that's a no question first ballot. Here's my thing, and they're not going to do it, but if you're going to hold those things against Bill Belichick, are you going to hold those same things against Tom Brady? But no, they won't. And Tom's going to be a first ballot. He's going to go down as the greatest quarterback of all time, which is
Oh,
whatever.
he's
He may
he's
deserve
gonna
it. But
yeah,
the
he's
thing
gonna
is,
slow
you
walk
can't
down the Hall of Fame
you
that
can't
Hall of Fame
say
carpet.
that you can't say Deflategate and Spygate matter and then just let Tom Brady in the Hall of Fame with those same accusations. So it's wild to me, absolutely wild.
Yeah, there's and I always have this because I overthink everything. I go through all these. It's like Sunny in Philadelphia where I'm pinpointing everything and saying where are the conspiracy theories and how everything's going. And because you're right, what you just mentioned is 100% on par with. If it's not going to be that way for Belichick, then it can't be that way for Brady, right? Because they're 1-1, and if you're saying that you're deflating footballs, the person touching the ball every damn play knows what it feels like, right? So you can't keep one person out for the cheating and not the other. On top of the fact that you mentioned everything with like UNC and the girlfriend, things like that. You would this if because Bill Polian had some kind of play in this. It just irritates me that the recency bias of those types of things like going to college or having the young girlfriend are the things that now we're using that to actively play defense against you being in the Hall of Fame. I kind of have a problem with that. Like the whole
I
resume
agree.
doesn't matter anymore. We're so deeply entrenched right now as a society where whatever just happened is the most important thing. Where his girlfriend that he's dating, who's 50 years younger than him, is the reason, and he went to go coach college, is the reason why you're keeping him as a first ballot Hall of Famer. I said this the other day on the Sports Avengers page, is that I'm actually glad that this happened to I'm glad this happened to Bill because maybe this keeps Eli completely out of the Hall of Fame altogether because I don't feel like he should be in there at all.
We're in a disagreement in that one, but
Oh, on
we're
Eli?
yeah, we're in a disagreement on that one. But
But either way, so I know you got to get out of here soon. I really appreciate you, Stuart. Is there anything you want to say to everybody before you get out of here where they can find you? I know I dropped a link in the chat, but where can people find you? What's good with the podcast and let everybody know where they can search you at it.
Yeah, the podcast is the Morning Brew with Stew. Today is what, Wednesday? A new episode just dropped yesterday. You can find it wherever you get podcast, Apple, Spotify, all that stuff. So you can go check it out there. You can follow me on Twitter at Stew Morning, all that good stuff. So yeah, thank you for having me, man.
Yeah, absolutely. It was great to have you on. I'm sorry that I like again when I get a guest on, I usually go a little bit overboard and do the off on a tangent things, but I appreciate you being on. You guys know the drill. Stay up, stay blessed, and we will catch you guys on the next one. Thank you so much for your time, Stu.
Thank you.